All right, Haribo.
Yo, Harry Bow.
Yo, Haribo. Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's our catchphrase, man. We won't stop
uh,
until the whole community is saying yo before Harry
yo,
Bow.
Haribo. You imagine you go to a temple and you go to like, like I don't know, like a Radhanath Swami, kind of top echelons type of guru, and just be like, "Yo, what up, man? Haribo, yo, what up? What up, yo? What you saying this weekend, yo? You going
Maybe
down to
we could
that kirtan, yo?"
we could instead of doing this, we could do that. Well, we could do mix it. Everyone goes like this: Yo, Harry Bow, spirit soul.
Yo, Haribo, spirit soul. Oh, that'd be awesome. All right, man. Let's dive
So
into today's podcast. Let's do this. Let's do
yeah,
this.
let's
All
play
right,
the
here's
theme
our
tune.
entrance. All right, man. Let's get all like holy.
Yeah, DJ at the back of the temple
That's right.
in the morning program.
Morning program. DJ Damadora.
Remix.
Ah, Bust the robot.
Trying to do the shoulder one. Yeah. Govindam.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Huh.
yeah, yeah. I was listening to this Krishna rap remix the other day that me and
Oh
some
yeah.
friends did. It's crazy, crazy song. Bow, bow. If you haven't heard that, go out and get that Krishna rap and Krishna rap remix. That's the
Where's
beat
that
for
at?
it. That's out
Oh,
on all streaming platforms. Somehow Krishna uh, used me as an instrument to make that beat. I don't even normally make beats, and one day I was like, let me just try and make a beat. I try and sample that song Govinda Mari Pusham, and then like suddenly within like a few hours, it was like that beat just everything went perfectly. And yeah,
nice.
Krishna rap and Krishna remix. They are on all streaming platforms. That one has Sima MC and As It Is featuring. They're both good devotee rappers. Yeah,
Devotee rappers. What do you think about that? You think devotee rappers, you think that like some people find that maybe insulting to the culture, like not keeping it like
maybe.
with all the old bhajans and such?
Yeah, I know a lot of devotees they only listen to kirtan and stuff like that, but I was always told to like spiritualize what you do, So that's what they told me, and they told me that's what Prabhupada said. So I used to rap, so then I just try and rap about Krishna, that's spiritualizing it and engaging your nature, and even that beat, I mean, I know that's a traditional kind of, it's not. I mean, people probably said that wasn't a traditional song when it came out as well, but
Yeah, there was controversy when that came out
because
because I
she was
think it was a
singing,
woman. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I just used the tradition of hip hop to sample a classic song from the culture and make it into something new. So yeah, of course there'll be mixed feelings about it, but everything can be Christianized. I heard, isn't it? So even rap, and therefore the consciousness becomes lifted of it. So it's not just rap in the mode of ignorance, which much of it is. Can be
Yeah.
transcendental rap.
Transcendental rap. Yeah, I always think like, when I started practicing Krishna consciousness and wanted to see God and everything and wanted to know God and still on that journey. I always thought like when I listened to like even like if I'm in the car and some mainstream music and it was rapping or singing about like love, right? And it's normally
Yeah,
in with the sexual, with sex being at the center of that,
yeah,
ooh, I want his body on me
yeah.
or whatever it is,
Some of them
right?
are no, some of them are so obvious. What's that Ed
Yeah.
Sheeran one that was like a big hit? It's like it literally says, "I'm in love with your body." Like that's what the
Oh
song
yeah.
just repeats. It just
Yeah.
repeats that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm in love with your body, and I don't care about your
Yeah,
spirit.
yeah.
I'm in
I'm in
love
love
with
with
your
the shape of
body.
you. Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
like it's
yeah,
literally it's literally bodily concept of life, and it's like number one hit. We love it.
we love it. Yeah, I mean, I would be lying to say if there were some people's bodies that I was like not lusty over.
Man, I will be lying too.
I would be lying when I see something like wow. but yeah, definitely when we can dovetail it at least at bare minimum, right? And say
Mm.
like those type of songs like Ed Sheeran, I'm in love with your body. And then if you think about Krishna and like put it in that context of like, I'm in love with your spiritual form.
Well, that's what it is. Everything can be Krishnaic. So the funny thing is, actually, all those love songs, they're actually about Krishna, but the people just
Yeah,
don't realize, because anything that's attractive in the world is coming from him. So then, so I'm really into music, so I start to listen to everything like that now. So some songs I can tell they have a spiritual message, even though it's not obvious.
yeah,
Some people do, and you can change it yourself. They might be talking about maybe a mundane love affair, but you can just think of Krishna while you're listening to it, and I do that quite a lot because I just connect to Krishna through music a lot. So I'll listen to like a love song and just think of him, and it completely changes the dynamic. Or even
yeah,
the ones that are harder to do, like that one,
yeah.
but
No,
they're still attracted to Krishna. They just, it's indirect. They're not aware of it yet, so they're just talking about his, beauty and his forms in a, in a perverted way. But it's still about
yeah.
him.
I I remember like doing this with a 50 Cent album. We put on this 50 Cent album. We were cruising, and I remember because I was just finished like a long good chanting session, and it was like it's like his old record, where it's like it's real hardcore rap. It's all gangster stuff, and all I could think about though was I was like, man, he's got so much like he's so talented, and that all that talent is emanating from Krishna, you
Yeah,
know? So he's using it in the way he's using it, which, is largely based on his environment and what he grew up with and knows. But at the same time, I could see all the qualities, the fame, the beauty, the
yeah,
strength, right?
yeah,
He's intelligent. I was like, actually, he's got like incredible amounts of good karma to be able
yeah.
to, do what he does in the world. And just seeing Krishna within him, even though he's like, what?
I
Bah,
get it.
bah, 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 you know?
Well, the thing is that I actually admire about some of those guys. We talked about Tupac before as well, or like people like
Oh
50
yeah,
Cent. Like people might be like, oh, these guys, as you said, they're more traditional, be like, now they're talking about 50 Cent. But it's like, I at least admire that it's almost like they're fully presenting who they are right now. So, there's that side. Sometimes they talk about ignorance, but also 50 Cent often will mention God in his songs. Like the
oh yeah,
song Many Men, it might be in my top 10 hip hop songs of all time because it's such a real
oh,
story about when he was close to death, when he got shot 9 times. And the song is about that. And he mentions God quite a few times in that song, like talking to God, or in the Bible, it says what goes around comes around, and that he felt like, he came back from that near death experience with a new perspective. And these are like very real stories. Tupac has so many ones like that. And
yeah.
yeah,
I
that's why
remember,
that's
and
something,
yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
remember,
something about
man.
hip hop can do that. Yeah,
Yeah, well, again, because God is within everything. Sometimes consciousness is there, it's in there, but it's covered, right? But if
yeah.
we can see it, then we can help bring it out, help
Mm,
spiritualize it, and kind of serve Krishna even in the most like I love that idea. What one thing I appreciated about becoming a devotee is the idea of that I'm not trying to get to heaven and I'm not trying to avoid hell. I'm just serving
mm,
Krishna. So
yeah,
whether I'm in the middle of the hood, and there's like, it's just gangsters all around or whatever it is, or you're in that environment, but you
mm,
remember Krishna and you think, man, I'm here to serve and I can uplift and
mm,
you can bring, like I've seen some hardcore guys, like I grew up in a couple like I say I grew up, but I've spent time like a couple years here, a couple of years in
mm,
pretty
mm.
hardcore neighborhoods. And those guys down there, nobody thinks that there's God or spirituality, but they're actually like everybody's looking for God.
Yeah,
They talk about God too, but they're just like again, it's just mode of ignorance. They don't really know. They've been to maybe a few churches or whatever.
yeah,
So they don't have any knowledge to really understand, but they're still searching, or they'll still be like, yo, you got to trust in God. And,
yeah,
they give you those kind of principles or points
mm,
without, and it's like, so you could just see it everywhere that everybody's actually searching for God. Everybody wants to be connected and everybody's searching for happiness at the end of the day. Right. So whether
yeah,
a guy's, he's getting his significance because he's a stick up kid and he's like, and that's just because his environment is propping that up. but it's that quality of fame or significance that he wants, right? That he's attracted
Yeah.
to. He just doesn't realize the source of it. So I think, like, me listening to like guys like 50 Cent stuff, obviously I don't listen to it that much anymore. I love the beats more than the raps now, but I still like, because I mean, I grew up on that stuff, and I still like when I hear it, like my head still bounces and I can't help but be like,
Yeah.
whoa, yeah. And I do it,
No.
but I do, try to think of Krishna while I'm doing it, or I try to dovetail it to be like, wow, his, like 50 Cent as an example, or Tupac. Wow,
No.
they're so talented. They have this. And just one last thing I want to say about Pac was that
Yeah.
I've watched many interviews with him, and he says consistently over his career, I'm so appreciative to God. I'm so
Yeah. Yeah.
appreciative to
So
God.
many times.
So he just always gives it up. He acknowledges that there's a higher power and intelligence, and that everything is coming from him, and he's acknowledged that so many times in his raps and his musics. And I'm like, even just that small principle that he's doing of acknowledging God, right? He's
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
all
Keep it.
kinds of weird shit, but or not godly shit, right? But just because he constantly is, that God's in his heart and he's acknowledging him, he's
Yeah.
still, he's gets so much mercy.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen him say it so many times in his poetry books as well. He was like doing nice poems about God. Very expressive person in all different ways. Whether it was some uh, gangster stuff or some spiritual stuff, he was expressing what he was going through, and I kind of appreciate that someone can just be really real about where they're at and express that, because that's what we relate to. And I
Yeah,
still listen to that stuff now, but mainly because it's more my field. If it's your job, you have to just like
that's right.
a dentist has to learn all about teeth. It's not exactly about Krishna, is it? But if you're a devotee
Yeah.
dentist, you got to learn about. So I study music and stuff and learn like that. So yeah, no, I think it's all right. But the funny thing is, there's not many devotee rappers. Like, it's not hard to be the best devotee rapper because there's like not much of a top 10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is there even
so
10? Top
I
10? I'm
don't
like, I'm
even know
pretty
if
sure
there's
there's 80
10.
y'all.
I
Yeah.
couldn't find many when I was trying to like collaborate. But what's interesting about it is because we have influence from hip hop, like, and a lot of it is in mode of ignorance. So the natural tendency is to rap like this and like that's
Right.
just that mood is ignorant, is the mood of
Yeah.
it. So what's funny about it, sometimes this I've seen some kind of a devotee rap where trying to do philosophy, but it's with like that tone, and it's like weird mix of ignorance and goodness, like together. You know what I mean? So whatever we do, we have to like keep it real, like with where we're at, and yeah, not try and, as we were talking about last week, be above where we are, try and speak too much philosophy that we haven't realized, and be too like, but also don't put on the I'm a I'm a gangster rapper as well. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just try and be like really where you're at and express that, and then it hopefully will come across like nicely to people. And I get many messages from people mainly saying, man, I used to listen to hip hop and I thought I wasn't allowed anymore, because, and now devotees doing rap. So that's like really cool, and they kind of cherish that because they get to listen to some rap music again,
Well, I
but it's
think,
talking about Krishna.
yeah, I know for me, I cherish it. I'm grateful for, guys like you that are putting out like hip hop music, but, with Krishna consciousness and good messages, because it's like our ears are still kind of attuned to that, right? Like we're still
Yeah,
a little bit, we're still influenced by that. And so when I get to hear like a Krishna rap, it's like, oh, I still get to kind of like do the part that I really did still enjoy about it, which was the
yeah,
dancing and just like getting hype and all that kind of stuff. But I recognize, like, I don't have the ear for the lyrics anymore. I know, because I
yeah,
don't listen to like that's why I talk about 50 Cent, Tupac. Notice I never mention newer guys, because I don't know who they are. Right? Like I was like,
yeah,
people are like, yo, you listening to, little something, little whatever. It's like there was an era where everybody was little, right? And then
yeah,
to me, everybody just sounds like Drake now, right? I'm like, oh, is that
yeah,
Drake?
yeah.
If I hear some new hip hop, I'm like, is that Drake? No, they're like, no, this is the baby. And I'm
It's
like,
just melodic, very
there's a
melodic
guy
now.
named the
It's not
baby.
about
I've
the
never heard
lyrics.
of it. Yeah.
No,
And
he's all right, but
I don't know him. I've
for
heard of
me,
him, but I don't know his
for
songs.
me, it's about the lyrics a lot in hip hop, and that's what it's a great tool to speak philosophy. That's also why I love it. So like, you can just like read a Prabhupada book and try and make it rhyme and put it into a rap. Like, it's just such a good way to convey philosophy, because it's like a lot about the lyrics. So that's why I think it can work, dovetailed with Krishna consciousness.
And I think like this weekend I spent some time with my buddy, and he's a great guy. He lives like almost off the grid. He's like out fishing and such, and so he's like a straight carnivore eater. He's like huge. He was
Mm.
an MMA fighter, right? Like he's a massive guy, right? Like he's this, and he's like on a carnivore diet and stuff like that, and this type of thing. And I'm vegetarian, right? And and so like when we have dinner, like I'm sitting there, like for breakfast, he sat right, like we sat next to each other, and I'm eating oatmeal with a little bit of honey and blueberries, right? That's my breakfast, right? And he's got like 18 eggs on his plate and stuff, and he eats just massive bread and stuff. But what's really interesting is like you see, it's like you would think like two worlds, like people like devotees, some traditional devotees, of course, would be like, you shouldn't hang out with him, blah, 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 blah. I was like, this is one of my best buds, and we actually have like some great conversations. He's into Stoicism, and he's really interested in Krishna and Vedic philosophy. And like, I was showing him chanting this weekend and everything like that. So we sat, we meditated, we chanted, and we were totally unplugged. And it's when I have experiences like that that I remember like, look, I'm choosing to live this way. And I believe that this is the way to live. And I believe that this is the way to go. At the same time, I hold a deep respect for people who are choosing to live other ways, but they do it all out. Like he would never disrespect. Like he's actually like he was saying, like I admire that you're a vegetarian and like no
Mm.
killing animals and stuff. He's like, he's like it's just like for him, it's hard to wrap his head around that, like for
Yeah.
himself. But he's like, I really admire it, and he's taken up like not without he hasn't taken up any Krishna consciousness principles, but he's already taken up like the other three. He doesn't gamble, you know, he doesn't have illicit sex, right? And he doesn't, and he's like all into the semen retention stuff and everything like that. And as a fighter, he knows the importance of it and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's actually got flack. He's actually gotten like people's like, because politically, because people don't like me politically, some people, and they like he's gotten flack from like family and everything, like, oh, this guy's weird, he doesn't want guys to ejaculate and stuff, and he's like totally stuck up for it. He's like, you're an idiot, like this, you should listen to what he's actually saying, like this is, guys need to get their balls under control and blah 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 blah.
But
And I just wanted to
but
like just make the point of like, you see, you confuse when you're like in Krishna consciousness and you're not afraid of the world, then you can go out into the world and you can make a difference. Like there we were talking
yeah.
about Krishna, you know, and we were talking about Krishna and philosophy and being in harmony with nature and unplugging from all the negativity in the world and all. We were having these great philosophical conversations
Yeah.
about God, but he's sitting there eating a pound of meat, but in his consciousness he doesn't feel like that's wrong or anything, and I respect that, right? And we even had conversations about it, and it's like,
Mm.
you do you, I do me. And at the end of the day, we're all going to end up in the same place. We're all looking to get back to the spiritual world. And we're all searching for happiness in our own ways. So I just really respect
That's
that, and I try not to come across too preachy or too like
yeah, yeah.
condemning. Like waving my
But
finger and
that's
starting calling people demons and karmis. I'm like, this guy's got a good heart. So what? Like like I understand he doesn't line up exactly with our culture, but I mean, I'm
that's
like, I'm not gonna just not hang out with this dude. I've learned a lot from him, and actually, he's got really good qualities that I could absorb. He's got tremendous
sometimes
discipline.
sometimes when our own faith isn't that strong, we get very easily put off by anything else that isn't doing exactly like what we
Mm.
think it should, because we're living by that rigid standard. Because if we don't, we feel like we'll fall off, and so
Yeah.
we want everyone else to do exactly the way we're doing, because sometimes that's a kind of about our own faith. But anyway, I really think that's something that's really cool about you, that is so accepting. That's, and when I first heard you speak as well, you were kind of, as I said, talking about different things in the same sentences, like sex and spirituality, and you even mentioned Tupac in the first thing I heard, and I was like, wow, I feel like we're in this world, we need to like accept where we're at and like do the best we can. And to be honest, I would rather hang out with a guy who's eating a bunch of eggs but standing up for the truth wherever he understands it, like with the semen retention army and stuff. Same thing happens with me. People like on TikTok, I'm getting loads of flack now, but I'm getting good responses as well. But it's just
Yeah.
like, I won't hide away though. Like if something's important to me, like I've actually lost a lot of followers since I've been talking about this stuff. Like, but
Mm.
they're not real followers then. Like I want,
Yeah.
even if it's one person who picks it up, like, because I think it's important. So I'd rather hang out with a guy who, you know, might not be living the exact lifestyle that I would think is whatever correct, you know, rather than someone who's doing everything perfectly but is like, what's not the word, I wouldn't say, like, you know, but it's
Well, you
not
just
really
find like
standing
you can't
in his
connect with
truth,
them. Yeah, and you
because
just
the guy's
find like,
standing in
yeah,
his truth, whatever his truth is right now. And that's, as we're just talking about with certain like rappers and stuff, I respect that about people, that they're just being fully who they are right now and showing that, and then they show actually their mistakes and their flaws, and they grow from it because they're being honest about it, you know, rather than us trying to act all perfect, but inside there's all this like darkness that is not, you know, being
yeah.
shown and comes out. So yeah, I just really respect honesty and acceptance of ourselves and others. So I really, yeah, I like that about you, because you seem very accepting about yourself, where you're at, and then therefore others. So that's
Well, I
really
just
cool,
found
because now
like
the guy, you know, was learning about chanting and stuff. If you
that's
would have
right.
judged him, then he wouldn't. He'd just be there eating his eggs, but not chanting. What's
Yeah,
the point?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's how like that's the thing. I think like one thing that my guru, I remember him saying to me was that relationship first, right?
Yeah,
Like just go out there and make friends, don't go out there and try to like preach. Like of course, like if that's you're in the temple and stuff, that's maybe different. But like for a lot of us like householders and such, it's like, we can go out there and we have the opportunity to make a lot of friends with people who may not even be spiritually inclined. I remember I was working at a corporation for a little bit there, and I would chant during like my breaks, right? And I would just sit there and I would chant. And I had a few people come up to me. I had one of the managers come up to me and be like, "Can I ask you a question? Are you praying?" And I said, "Yeah, it's like a form of prayer. I do. It's called mantra meditation, but it's a form of prayer. It's just acknowledging God and asking Him to be in His service and and trying to like just please Him through prayer." And he was just like, and again, this guy has like no spiritual knowledge at all or anything, but again, that desire was there, and he's like, "No, I really acknowledge you for that." And he's like, "It's something that you don't see in this world anymore." Like he's like seeing you pray openly is like so rare, like because
yeah,
nobody does that. And he was just like he was just saying like he admired it because he was just saying like he had this inclination of wanting to go back to church and such, and I
yeah.
had just encouraged him to. So I didn't encourage him to like, oh
No,
no, you have to go read Bhagavad Gita, and oh no, church is that's not transcendental, that's Jesus was only teaching mode of goodness. And I didn't try to show
no,
like my knowledge to him, or whatever knowledge I may have. I just encouraged him to be like, oh, here's a guy who's like, he's just showing interest in God, and
yeah,
his relationship with God is through Christ as he knows it. His culture growing up, he's Greek background, living in Canada, and I just encouraged him. I said, man, you should go to church. Like, go this Sunday, just do it. I was like, it's so amazing when you go there and you just feel connected, you feel at peace, and it just helps you. And most people, they're just looking for ways to deal with stress and such, and it's like anywhere that you can interject God into a situation, you interject it and watch how things, even if you're in the darkest, say you're in the middle of the club, kind of bumping and grinding, and all of a sudden you start to somehow interject God there, you could see the energy, and like even people like kind of be like wake up a little bit in those moments and be like, oh yeah, there is more
yeah.
to
Just,
life than this. It's just like
but
shit,
it's
that's
just
awesome.
by setting an example, and being yourself, then people, they take to that naturally, as you say, without
Yeah.
being too preachy. Because sometimes that's also about our own faith. We either preach
Mm.
too much because we're like insecure and they've got to be like us, or we hide our faith as well sometimes. Oh, I'm
Mm.
gonna chant, I don't want anyone to see my beads, I'm gonna carry this clickers are fine as well. But you know what I mean, it's like some devotees, we're like out in the world like, oh, people think I'm weird, or what do you follow? I follow a thing. It's like where we don't think they'll understand, so we don't, just like be yourself, like go and chant in front of people, pray, do your thing, but you're not trying to make them do it. Just
Yeah.
be yourself where you're at. So many times where like, it's like we shouldn't be scared of the world. Like Prabhupada said, we should be scared of Maya. That's different. We
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
try to
That's right.
understand it, but we shouldn't be scared to live in the world, and like we should be fearless like in the world if we have strong faith. So many times like devotees will be in the temple and they'll feel very comfortable there, and then they go outside and it's like chaos, and it's like feel like they don't know what to do, and so in between, and want to go back and hide in an ashram. Not that everyone's hiding there, but you know what I mean. It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
or in the community, you can't be around anyone who's not a devotee and stuff like that. And of course, devotee association is good for our spiritual lives, but I personally feel that we shouldn't be scared to be in the world.
yeah.
And
Well, I just think
yeah,
like it's just not, well, if we're scared to be in the world, and again, like, we're really talking about householder life, right? The
yeah,
reality of householder life is that we are in the world, right? And we are interacting like in our businesses, we have careers, schools, whatever, going to the grocery stores, all these things where we're interacting with non-devotees all the time. And again, it to me, it's about your energy and vibe. I've had many people, because I'll like sometimes wear my bead bag, like just across, we
yeah,
strap it across, right? And I'll just like, I'll put my bead bag on because I've been chanting and then I'm done my rounds, or I'm like just taking a break, whatever. So I just strap it on, or I'll have it on my hand as I'm chanting and such. And I've had people come up to me that know me and such. Oh, hey, Nick, what's up? Of course they don't know me as Nikula. So they're like, hey, what up, Nick? Blah, blah, blah. And so we're just chatting. And then they'll be like, oh, what's that? And then I'll just
mm,
take out, like, I'll be like, oh, this is, these are, they're called japa beads. I do mantra meditation, just for my spiritual upliftment, to remember God in my life, and just give them just a very simple explanation. And you know
yeah,
what? Like 9 out of 10 people just don't care. They just don't care.
yeah,
They're not like anti it, but they're not
yeah,
for it. They're just
yeah,
like, oh, that's cool. That's your thing. And I just
yeah,
find that people just generally take on the energy you have about it. If I'm all like,
yeah,
oh, well, you won't understand, this is
mm.
deep spiritual knowledge for,
Yeah. They pick that up
yeah, they'll be like,
when you're
whatever. But
awkward
if I'm
about
just
it.
like, oh no, like I just normalize it, right? Like, oh yeah, no, man, I just like chant. And then like one of the things I live in a very Christian place, right? With Christianity is well, first of all, it's a non-religious place, let's be real, right? And then those who practice anything, it's generally Christianity is where I'm at, right? And most of the times, another common thing I get with chanting in public is it like the rosary? And
Yeah,
I say, yeah. And actually, with my buddy, we did a few. I showed him how to do the rosary because I know how to chant the rosary as well, right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, look, you same thing. You go, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord. And I did the Hail Mary, right? And I was like, so you could pick up the Hail Mary, or you could pick up the rosary as your form. I said, so if you choose to chant, the Maha Mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra, and then that's one thing. I said, but if like I've encouraged many Christians that are like, oh well, I don't know, like, because I still want to follow Christ and such. I said, great, follow Christ, and then pick up the practice of the rosary. I said, but do it. Like, don't be like, oh, I believe in Christ, and know nothing, never read the Bible, never,
yeah,
chant on the rosary or pray on the rosary, don't have a cross in your house or whatever. I was like, do it. Like, if you're gonna follow Christ, then follow Christ, like
yeah,
bless your food. And you'll see it's all the same principles. He teaches you to bless your food. He teaches you to give thanks. It's, you learn a lot there, of course, and I think that when you're an example of that, and you just go with like a mood of, I'm not trying to convert you, but I'm also not shying away from who I am and what I do,
yeah.
then it's then those that are attracted will be attracted, and those aren't, they'll never mention it. They just won't even mention it.
Yeah, you just present it because it's attractive in itself. So you just
Yeah.
present what you're doing, be a good example of how it's helping you, and why you're doing it. And then yeah, people who are attracted will be, but you can't really force people. And definitely we don't have to like hide it
I
away
think that your
and be awkward
character,
about it.
yeah, I think your character and who you are speaks like, if has a huge impact on how attracted they are to what you do, right?
Yeah,
Like if somebody, I
yeah,
know if somebody has some kind of respect for me for whatever reason, they're like, oh, I admire what you do for whatever reason, then they learn that I chant and that I'm part of the Hare Krishna community, they seem to be more intrigued or open to it because they're open to me, right?
mm,
Like, just like if I met you and I'm like, man, I really like this guy's music and he's out there bumping, and then I learn, oh man, he's into this spiritual practice, and I'm kind of into spirituality. I don't really have a practice or anything, but I'm into it. Now all of a sudden that you can become that opening to Krishna, because you'd be like, yeah, actually, I do this in my own life. And because they admire you and you're performing and everything, and then they figure out that you worship God, oh, now they're open to worshiping God too. So I think that who we
Yeah.
are really is really so much more important than necessarily like, let's say, if we understand like all the little nuances. And of course, as time goes on, the other thing too that I find, it's like as time goes on, we'll learn the little nuances, we'll learn the little
Yeah.
technicalities and such. But again, when someone's at the temple, like you mentioned on our first episode, right? Like you're like there for the first time or whatever like that, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna serve the food, and someone's like, you don't know how to do it. I'm like, of course he doesn't know how to do it. This is his first time. Like what? Like, so rather than jumping to you don't know how to do it, to be like, oh, Prabhu, can we help you? Can we help you show you how we do it here? And this is why we do it like that. It's a
Yeah.
cleanliness thing. It's like, oh, there's a reason why you do it that way. If you don't even know why you do the ritual and you're doing the ritual, what's the use of the ritual anyways? You're just
Yeah, and
doing
of course,
whatever.
when someone's there for the first time, they don't even need to be told about that. Like you just overlook it,
No.
and you just say, "Oh, they're here." That's the good thing, because as we said, it's
Mm,
mainly about relationships. The devotees that have helped me the most are the ones that have been friends, and helped me with
yeah.
relationship. Because you can tell. I think because it's a preaching movement, sometimes we get a bit obsessed with preaching. Gotta make devotees. Gotta, like, when we talk to someone, I gotta make them a devotee. Come to the temple, and it's like a success, like a sales. Like if
Mm,
they move into the ashram, success. I made a sale. But it's like really just about, yeah, they'll be attracted if we're comfortable with it, if our faith is strong and we're just like showing. I saw another one. Uh, a new girl had this book. It's the Sri Isu Upanishad book. I
mm-hmm.
think it's got Lord Vishnu on the front. I can't remember exactly the book, but and she had just been given this book, and she was where the shoes were, just outside the temple, and she was putting her shoes back on or something. And so she put the book down on the shoes or on the floor or something, and some
Yeah. Someone freaked
and
out about her.
some
Yeah.
devotee was like, "Don't put the book on the shoes," like, and she was like, "Oh," like literally first time there, like, "Oh, what, why?" And she's like, "Well, this is Lord Vishnu. Would you put your foot on Lord Vishnu's face? Would you put your shoe on his face like that?" And I was just like, I just like had to step in and say, like I can't remember, but I saw her downstairs after, and I was like, "Don't worry about that guy. Like,
Yeah.
just the book's cool. He was just being a bit like funny. It's not like that here. Everyone's not like that here."
Yeah.
But
That
people
happened to
won't come
me.
back. It's like,
That exact thing happened to me. I went to the temple for the first time. I had my Bhagavad Gita thinking I'm being a good devotee, right? I'm like, look
yeah.
at me. I'm bringing the spiritual text. And so we're sitting there, and someone was giving a class. So I didn't have anywhere to put my Gita. So I just put it on the ground next to me, right? Not thinking anything. Within like a minute, yeah. Prabhu, your book is on the ground. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't even know this guy, right? Don't know him from nothing. Yo, you can't put the book on the ground, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay. So I took the book up, put it on the ground. And I was like, and like, I really had to concentrate, because my personality is to tell you where to go, because I don't know you, right? So I'm like, dude, I don't know you. Like, don't tap on my shoulder and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? And just leave me alone, right? But I was like trying to be like good, right? So I'm like, well, okay. So I picked the book up, but I remember like being like having to like battle my ego in that, because I remember kind of being like wanting to like just tell this guy like, yo, dude, like don't touch me and back
but
off me. You know what I mean? Like I
but
don't know
but
you,
again,
but I'm happy I didn't. But you know what I mean?
but that was a perfect opportunity to create a relationship. Like he could have come over and said in a really nice way, like, "Hey, what's your name?" Or, somehow use that as a cool preaching, like
Yeah,
connecting thing. Oh, just so you know, these books, it's like Krishna's words, so like he could have brought a cushion over and say, "We put them on the cushion because it's like so special, and we tend not to put them on the floor. Like you didn't know that." Or, just
yeah.
say something really, I don't mean to be weird, bro, but like, yeah, that's just what we do. But so great you're reading this book, and just like, you could have been like, "Oh, I like this guy," rather than, "Prabhu, don't put the book on the floor, Prabhu. It's a sin." It's like,
Yeah, because it reminded me of like why I left the Catholic Church,
yeah,
right?
that's
Because
when
it's like, oh, it's this
the
we're another
rules the
religion that's just like.
we spoke about it last time about the primary becoming the secondary. Like, it's supposed to be about bhakti as the primary, and the rules are like secondary to help.
Yeah, to
That's
hold
when
it,
the
to
rules
contain
become,
you. Yeah.
yeah, rather than seeing someone's got the book, wow, he's learning about bhakti, he's developing his bhakti, that's the main thing. I won't disturb him, or I might in a beneficial way, tell him about that you shouldn't put books on the floor, but the secondary comes first. The rules are first. Don't put the book on the floor, like completely disregarding the relationship, the bhakti, the essence.
Yeah.
It's like upside down, you know.
Like what I think about that is like in sales, you know, because I as a trade I help people with generating sales, and one of the things, you know, we know in sales is nobody likes to be sold, but people like to buy, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the keys to sales is asking permission to sell. Meaning, like, so you talk to someone, say, like, hey, would it be okay if I shared a few things about, you know, like the Gita and how we treat it? So rather than just telling someone, ask them, like, and of course they're gonna say yes. Like it'd be like if that guy knocked, like, hey man, you know, like you said, hey, you know, hey, I noticed you have the Bhagavad Gita on the floor. Is it okay if I share with you how
That would
we
be
generally
respectful.
cheating it? Then I'd be like, oh, okay, because actually I was there to be respectful. I want to be there.
And
That's
to
why I'm
learn,
there.
you have the
I'm
book
there
to
to be
learn
like,
about.
you know, yeah, like a good student. That's in my head. I'm being awesome because I'm bringing my book, which I never did to class, right? Like in my head, I'm like improving, right? I'm like, all right, I'm bringing my book. I'm going to do this right. I'm going to learn from these folks. But again, it's like that permission. Oh, could I tell you more about how we treat the Gita or blah, 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 blah. Then it's, you know, then it's, it comes across different. I think that's just something like a type of training, you know, that devotees could potentially receive, you know, and that would really help. But anyways, man, speaking of the Gita, let's get into it. Let's do something. You want to just pick?
Yeah.
You want to pick a random book? Which one you got? That's a nice one. I got this one here.
Yeah,
Oh
these
yeah.
yours is a newer one.
Yeah.
I like this cover though. That one, that's the kind of
Was that an
the
older
one.
one?
Yeah, it's just 1977. But your one's that's the one that was like made for hotels, I think, isn't it? It's like a
This one?
the size of it is like, it's not as big as this, but it's not a pocket one. It's like in between. I think they made them as an idea to put in hotels, and then they just started distributing those white. That's like the main one used now, isn't it?
This one is, yeah, this one is like, and then I've got the soft cover. I've got a ton of the soft cover version
I
of it.
don't know
I
what
think
that is
maybe
then.
that was
Maybe
the
I'm
one.
wrong.
This is a hardcover one. And then there's the soft cover one, the exact same thing, but it's soft.
Maybe I'm wrong. That's not the one I thought it was.
But I
Anyway.
don't know. But it
Whatever,
changes
man.
colors. Like, look, like actually, it's kind of cool. Like this, it kind of looks pink. I don't know if you could kind of see that on the camera, but if I turn it around, it's like orange. That's actually
that's
the
the one.
original color.
That's the one I'm used to.
Yeah, this is the original color, but just because I've used it like this when like the sun gets on it, and this is mine. This is like the one that I like carry around everywhere.
You've been putting it on the floor, that's why.
I did. I put it on the floor, Prabhu. Sorry, I'm sorry. That's 3 lives in the hellish planets for me. All right.
Yeah, so let's just choose a verse at random. But the thing is, I know where about the chapters are, so I don't want to be biased and choose one from a particular chapter. You know? So we do beginning,
like
middle,
3,
or end.
2, open near the end.
Okay.
All right. Which one did you open?
It's on chapter 17, verse 24.
Chapter 17, verse 24.
Actually,
hold on. Yeah. Chapter. Okay. Chapter 17, verse 24. Okay. You want to read the first one, and I'll read the second. You can do like a little bit here.
Should we read the Sanskrit or just?
You can go do it. That way we can embarrass ourselves with the Sanskrit.
Tasmaram iti udharitya yagya dana tapa kriya pravartante vidanokta satatam brahma vidanam. Therefore, transcendentalists undertaking performances of sacrifice, charity, and penance in accordance with spiritual regulations begin always with Om to attain the supreme. Purport: Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. The lotus feet of Vishnu are the supreme devotional platform. The performance of everything on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead assures the perfection of all activity.
Nice. All right, now it's time for me to embarrass myself. Taditi anabisandahaya palam yagnya tapa kriya dana kriyascha vividyaha kriyante moksha kankishibihi. Jeez. All right. Translation. Without desiring fruit of results, one should perform various kinds of sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word tat. The purpose of such transcendental activities is to get free from material entanglement. Purport. To be elevated to the spiritual position, one should not act for any material gain. Acts should be performed for the ultimate gain of being transferred to the spiritual kingdom, back to home, back to Godhead.
It's funny, you know, when I
So
first
what
had
do
the
you think? Yeah,
Bhagavad
let's talk about that.
when I first had the Bhagavad Gita, I just remember this phrase kept being repeated,
Which
fruitive
one?
results and things like that. I think it was,
Oh yeah, fruitive
sorry, let me just,
results.
yeah, and I'd never heard those phrases really, or like, you know, fruitive activities and fruit and
Yeah,
giving
I
up
never
material
heard those
result.
either too. Yeah.
And I remember I had an audio book of like, I think it was just the verses and like unabridged. And I was like in the gym and I just kept hearing it because a lot of things repeat, you know, and they keep get fruitive results. And I just didn't understand what it was, but I knew it was something I'd find out one day. And like only now I'm starting to understand more what it means. But I just remember it's really stood
What
out to
does it
me.
mean to you? Fruitive results. What does that mean to you?
Well, let me just read that phrase again, how they said it. Yeah,
With
without desiring fruitive results, one should perform. Yeah, I mean, I guess on a basic level, it's like material desires and and karma being you have a material desire and the fruitive result, the fruits of that desire is like a material uh, result. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I guess it's
I think
saying,
it just means the results, like the fruit of like the manifest. Like if I'm working, if I'm working for, okay, so I run a business. I'm working. Am I working to make money,
mm,
material? So that means it's about me making money. I'm working for me. I'm working, and I'm the center of the consciousness, right? Like I'm only doing this because I'm going to get paid type of thing. I think that's fruit of results. I'm working for just the result of it. I don't really care about the client. I don't really care about anything. I'm just working for the result of me earning money.
yeah, okay,
But
so
if
it's the
I'm,
intention,
I
or
think
are
it's
you
the
working just for
intention.
the result for yourself?
Yeah, but if I'm not, if I'm working without desiring fruit of results, it means I'm still doing the same work. I'm still getting up and
And you
going to
may still
work.
get the result.
And I'm still going to get the result because I will get paid because that's the natural action and reaction of life. But the intention is beyond the result. It's like
Yeah,
actually I work because this pleases Krishna. My duty is to work, and I like to please Krishna. I like to please God. And so if I get up every day and I work properly, right? Meaning I'm working to please Krishna. So I'm still doing the same work, but the
and
mood is transcendental. The mood is not I'm working for money. And I notice when I work like that,
yeah,
actually the results are better,
it's
first of
funny that
all,
the
and
activity
the
and the
mood is
results are
better.
the same or
Everything is
better.
better. Yeah, everything seems to be better, and I also produce better work. I also recognize I don't have to do as much in the world because there's a greater
Yeah,
reciprocation from God. So I notice that if I'm working in a certain mood in a certain way, even the results are way better when I don't think about the results, but I simply think about putting my consciousness and the best qualities I
yeah,
can into the work. And then
yeah.
it seems like the results are better.
Well,
Anyways,
and also that then it frees you from material entanglement, which it says at the end of that verse. So that's the difference, isn't it? Instead of binding you, it frees you. So the same activity with even the same result sometimes, depending on the intention, the same materials, but there's a spiritual kind of fruitive. It's weird. It's almost like the result uh, is the fruit of your intention. So if you have a spiritual intention, you get like a kind of a spiritual result, I guess, which is pleasing Krishna and being, yeah, it frees you from material bondage instead of binding you to it. Just depending on the consciousness, on the result, the exact same activity. There's a big
Yeah.
difference in the grand scheme of things. What's going on, as you said, if you behave like your intention is beyond just the material result, then it's
Yeah,
completely different.
I mean, I've noticed it in my own life. It's very practical in my experience of of how I understand this is that it's just if I'm out there and I'm working, and I'm thinking, oh, like I got to make money, I got to do this, I got to do that. I can get very much in like well, first of all, I start to take Krishna out of it because now
Mm,
it's like I'm working for me and I'm the center, right? And then of course I become full of what? Anxiety, worry.
mm,
It's not going to work out. I feel scarce. Oh, I don't have enough. Right. So it's funny, like the whole thing becomes kind of suffering, like the whole thing, because it's just like, you're not even enjoying the work, like,
yeah.
or like, you're not even like, yeah, you're not even really doing the work to the best of your abilities. I find that I guess like, I enjoy the process of the work when I'm doing it at the best of my ability. And I do it at the best of my ability when I'm doing it for somebody else or for
Mm,
Krishna. So it's
yeah.
like I know there's a big difference too, like in my own business to be like, and I've, as you know, I have a couple of different businesses and things I work on. If I do it with like the spirit of I'm doing this to serve others, like, okay, I'm gonna make this program, right? Like we're like right now, I'm redesigning like the army, and we're releasing a new program called the boot camp, which is going to be like this whole dopamine detox thing. So even going above and beyond semen retention, but like how do you just like really cleanse and purify the body? um, and it's like from all the toxins and everything that we put into it. And it's like
Mm,
if I'm thinking about the guys that are going to go through the program, like my intention, like the work and the way that I approach it and the work that I end up like producing it's just a different quality than when I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I got to just make this boot camp because I'm gonna make a bunch of money off of it and then I'm gonna go like on vacation, right? So all to me that's working about the fruit of result. It's all about me and my enjoyment.
Yeah.
When I'm working without the fruit of result, without desiring the fruit of result still is there. It still
Yeah.
comes. I still get paid. I may still take that vacation or whatever, but the
Yeah.
spirit of it is much different and it has a greater impact. And I noticed that actually the results in all ways are much more better. And I recognize too, like that even my own enjoyment of the process is better.
Mm,
I'm not working
yeah.
from a place of scarcity or anxiety or worry. I'm working from a place of giving. I'm contributing. I'm like this. I'm making this program so these guys get the results and they get an amazing experience. That's a whole different intention than I'm working so I can just make a bunch of money and do nothing.
Yeah, it's so funny. You give up your own enjoyment and then you actually enjoy.
Yeah, it's backwards, right? Like everything in the
Yeah.
material world's like a mirror, right? So it's always backwards. It's like you think I want more money, so but it's actually what you think. So what you actually think is I want to receive more, but the reality is actually I need to give more. If I
Yeah.
want to receive more, I have to give more. So the
Yeah.
spirit is I should get up and give and serve,
Yeah.
right? But when the material consciousness, if I, and I'm just reflecting on myself, right, is like when I get up and I'm like, I'm gonna go make a bunch of money, I don't even want to do it. It's like there's something there
Yeah.
that's just like it's like I don't even want to do it. But when I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna make this awesome program and it's really gonna help guys and it's really gonna be able to like, help guys get to the next level. And I have that real intention behind it. I notice I also don't like slack or I don't take shortcuts. I'll
Yeah,
do
because
it
you really care
properly.
about it. Yeah.
That's right. You really care about it. And I remember Radhanath Swami talking about that. Like, if you teach everything is sacred, you'll see how much it works. It just works because you
Yeah.
really care about it. You're not just doing it because, oh, I got to do this, or you're doing
Mm,
it out of just obligation. There's a book talking about like Bhakti Bhav. I can't remember the
mm,
name of the Swami who wrote it. But anyways, he just talks about like okay, we first come to Krishna consciousness, and he talked about like the idea of like fear of God versus love of
Mm.
God.
Mm.
That first we follow everything because we're fearful, right? We're like, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to, like, pick up more bad karma. We're maybe stressed out in our lives. So we get a little bit of relief by doing some spiritual activity. And we're like, oh, yeah. But he's like, but unless it develops into love of God, now your motivation is I'm doing it because I love you, right? I'm doing it not because I have to. It's because
Mm.
I love you. I'm doing it. He's like, then you'll really feel the sweetness of Krishna consciousness. And he talked
Mm.
about that. That's why most people don't make it, because they
Mm.
never really develop love of God. They develop fear of God, which keeps them in check.
Mm.
But then eventually that becomes dry, because who wants to live in fear anyways, right? So if you're like, well, if I'm just fearing God, then that's like a fear-based relationship, right? But it's like love of God then becomes super sweet. And then you start to act out of love instead of out of obligation or fear. So it starts as
Mm.
duty, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
supposed to evolve to love.
Yeah, and because you could say that is a sacrifice, isn't it? Like giving up your material desires or fruitive results.
Yeah.
But then when you think about it, it's not actually a sacrifice, because what you get is better, you know. But that's what a sacrifice is. You sacrifice something for something
For
else.
something better. Yeah, that's
But
right.
if
That's
if there's
yeah.
really love there, then it's not really, you're not really sacrifice. You're sacrificing some suffering. Like
Yeah.
it won't work as well anyway for
I
something much better.
I think for myself, like, again, just reflecting on the conversation as we're talking about it, being like, I know the sacrifice is like egotistical, right?
Mm.
Like, so like right now in my life, actually, like just right after we get off this call, over the next hour or two, I'm sending in my resignation letter with the political party that I'm affiliated with, because I've decided, okay, I've done this now for a few years. I fought for what I believed in many different ways. And, it's just come to the point where I'm like, all right, do I really want to keep doing this? I've kind of just come to a point where I'm a little bit exhausted with it, right? Fighting and all this stuff. And I'm like, I want to get back into the positive space that I was in a few years ago,
Mm.
when, my sadhana was strong, everything was strong in that way. And I felt really good. But I recognized the sacrifice is the ego, is like, oh, but I'm sacrificing whatever little fame, and I'm not famous,
Mm.
but
Mm.
the
Mm.
little recognition that I've got, right? Or I'm sacrificing my reputation. Oh, what people are going to think I'm, like just, you know, pussying out, basically. I don't know another way to say that, but like, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like, right. I'm just pussying out, or like, so it's a lot of ego stuff. And I think that's like, at least in my experience, it's like, that's the sacrifice. You're sacrificing you as the center of it. Right. And you're like, it's not about you, man. It's actually, in your heart, I'm saying, talking to myself, I know in my heart that at this point now, I'm only there now because of ego now.
Yeah.
Now it's just, oh, you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. You said this, and I'm like, no, that's now getting away from the original intention of why I got
Yeah.
involved, which was because I believed in just the autonomy of a person, like that. Whether people, again, I still believe that. Like, I don't eat meat. My buddy Christian, he eats meat. That's his autonomy. That's his choice, right? And I believe in respecting that freedom, right? So it's like, so I respect, I really honor that freedom of the soul, even if the soul is doing all hellish things. That's their freedom to do that. God gave them that freedom to do that, right? He doesn't, because there's that like kind of thing like, well, if God loves you, he would just take away all the pain in the world and blah blah. I was like, no, that's such an
It's a
immature
complete
way of
lack of
looking at love.
understanding.
Totally. Yeah, that's so immature. That's such an immature way of looking at
Because
things, right?
that's with no free will, there cannot be
That's
love. It
right.
has to be voluntary.
Love has to be given freely. That's why God gives you free will. It's because he wants love, but he's not going to force you to love him, right?
Yeah,
He
and
just
we
wants
are
it. Yeah.
and therefore, because we have that free will, so we are the root of our suffering. We just don't
That's
see it.
right.
So we're
Yeah.
blaming God, but we have our free
Yeah.
will and our own
That's like blaming
sacrifice.
your parents, right? Like, you know, that's like, and maybe as a child you can be like, oh, my parents didn't bring me up right, so now I have all this suffering. But you an adult now, like you still
Yeah,
blaming, you're still like going, oh, mommy didn't love me enough or hug me enough. I get it, that shit that happens, but now you're an adult, so it's a maturity thing, right? So now you have to go and cultivate that, or deal with
so
that, and to me that's like the same thing, saying, well, God, if there was a God and God loved us, he would just make life so easy for us. I was like, no, that's still like, first of all, it's again, it's just such a lack of understanding, and such an immature way of looking at things. I was like, so he gives you free will. Animals don't have free will, but the human being has some free will. We don't like,
mm,
we have a spectrum of freedom in which we can operate in, right? I say, okay, we have that kind of freedom. Now we can use that freedom to either, we can even use that freedom to reject God. He's given that
yeah,
ability. You could, and he'll cover himself, right? He'll just be like, okay, I don't exist in your world, even though he does, and he's the source of everything. You can have the freedom to reject him, or you can have the freedom to love him and to try to get to know him and to try to know the ultimate truth. And you know, I think that's like, it's the most beautiful thing, is to act in that kind of freedom, right? And that's, I think,
yeah,
developing love of God. I think when you develop in love of God, then naturally you're not thinking about fruitive activities anyways. It's not really in
yeah.
your consciousness. You're just like, I just
Well,
act because of
as you
love. I
say,
love God. Yeah.
it's the, I guess the false ego diminishes more and more the more you go over and be and beyond it, and become less entangled by those actions. Then I guess the false ego kind of becomes less and less attached to those things. But I just wanted to say quickly about that point about the
Mm.
misunderstanding about why is there suffering. It's like Bhuta Bhavana, our good friend, said in one of his talks once. He said it's like someone's in prison and they're in the cell, you know, and they're like in the cell and they say, "Excuse me, prison guard, um, this door seems to be locked. I can't seem to get out. Can't seem to get out of it. And then when I get out of this door, eventually, I can't get out of this sort of whole establishment. I'm not allowed out anywhere. Like, what's going on? It's like it's complete misunderstanding of what the material world is. It's like a prison
Yeah.
house, and you're going, excuse, why is there suffering here? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
no
excuse me.
understanding.
Why do I only get 2 meals a day and
Yeah,
1 hour of yard time? And then it's like, they're like, because you killed people. And they're like,
yeah.
what? You what? No, no, no. And then it was that, right. It's actually, I was listening, myself and Sarah, we were driving again to our buddy's house on in his cabin and such, and on the weekend, and we were listening to a Christian podcast. Well, it wasn't a Christian podcast, but it's a podcast. This episode, anyways, I don't really know the podcast. My wife does, but the episode we were listening to was a podcast, and it was like a Christian guy speaking about economics from the Bible's perspective, right? Like,
Mm.
does the Bible or does spiritual teaching? And he's a religious thing, because he talked about all religions like having these principles. So he was taking it from the Bible, but he was speaking like he was very open to many different ways of saying the same things, or different religions. And it was like, the idea was that, so what was, oh, frig, I forget my train of thought, where I was going with that. I must have, my material mind,
Oh,
my
I was
Kali
saying
Yuga
about
brain.
the prison house, like Bhuta Bhavana said, being in the prison house, and I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
get
And
out.
yeah, so anyways, he was just talking about like these different principles and such, and how, like, unless we, I remember, my point was, he was saying that nobody even considers these spiritual teachings anymore as important. Like, if
Mm.
I, like, he was saying, like, oh, like, if I was to say, the Bible says, or the Bhagavad Gita says, or the
Yeah.
Buddha said, or right, actually, in today's world, that doesn't even mean anything. People are like, who cares what the Bible says? Who cares
No,
what the Bhagavad Gita says, right?
nowadays
It's like,
it's
well,
scientists say that's what people
that's right.
find.
Yeah, the material scientist said XYZ. Well, that's fine, but the material scientist has been wrong, like, and he was just saying, like, with the Bible, he's like, whether you're Christian or not, he's like, fact is that the Bible is the number one sold book in the world. There's no more book, more than the Bhagavad Gita and everything. The Bible that we know of in this history, the Bible is the number one book. He's like, so let's say you're completely atheistic. Would you still not be open enough to know why this is the number one book,
Yeah,
like, in
yeah,
the world? Like, there's obviously something there,
Well,
that
actually,
makes this book the #1 book in the world. So even if you're
that's also
completely atheist, it's like there's massive value in here, you
that's
know?
also science, though. Like millions of people throughout history have followed this. What, they're all just wrong? They're all
Yeah.
lying? Like, that's unscientific to think so. Like,
Yeah.
there's got to be something in it. That's actually a logical, a scientific conclusion, is to look into this, because why would so many people throughout history be interested in this?
Yeah. And as the prison analogy, I remember that Srila Prabhupada, hey, we got Robert with us.
Yeah, Bobby, he mixed and mastered my EP.
Oh, no way. Okay, cool, cool.
Legendary. What's up,
Legendary.
bro?
Legendary Bobby. Um, I remember Srila Prabhupada saying, like, well, it's like a prison house, and even though let's say you have life in, you killed someone, so the judge gave you life in prison, but 20 years into that prison sentence you reform, right? Like you have a change of heart, you would never do it again, you can't, you've really had that genuine transformation, your change of heart, you're somebody new now, your heart has changed. He's like, but you still have to actually live out
Mm.
your prison sentence, right? And so that's another thing too. It's like, oh, people are like, oh, well, I've prayed to God 3 times,
Mm.
right? I prayed to God. I did it for 2 years or whatever. Why isn't things like working out? Right? It's like, well, like you still have to actually live out your stuff, your karma. Now, God can take that away, and I've experienced that. I
But again,
know
that
God has
depends on the
saved me many
intention.
times. Yeah, yeah. I feel like I should be in a, maybe there's times in my life that my trouble should be a lot bigger.
Yeah.
I definitely should have had a lot more repercussion for that. But I recognize, like, when you're in spiritual consciousness, like God reduces your karma, right? He could take it away. He
So,
can make you not go through that prison sentence if
sometimes
he chooses.
sometimes they do get let out a little bit early if they do show,
That's right.
remorse and good. So it can affect things even in that material
Yeah,
situation. So
because that's a natural quality too of us all, which is of God, of
mm.
mercy, right? Like
Yeah.
we see someone's done something, like we see it, that could happen, like in relationships, right? Like someone does something and it's, but then you see there's a genuine like remorse, and
Mm.
naturally there's like a forgiveness almost right away, because
Like,
what you're looking
yeah.
for is, are they actually remorseful? Like when someone apologizes to you but they do it out of obligation
No,
and not genuine, it still
so,
doesn't mean anything, because you're like, oh yeah, you're
sometimes,
saying the words, but I can tell that you're
yeah,
actually still, your heart hasn't changed about it. You know what I
but
mean?
sometimes like a real apology can really deepen a relationship, even if they've done
Totally.
something really wrong to you. Like, I'd like to think I could forgive someone for anything if they genuinely said sorry. They may have upset me or did something,
Yeah.
but if they humbly say, like, it's a great quality to have. I would really respect that person more and have a deeper relationship if they said, you know what, I'm really sorry, I made that mistake, and I was wrong, or whatever. And I try to do that wherever I can, like, that deepens relationships when if you can do that to someone, see how they suddenly change. They're mad at you, and then they're suddenly like, I really like you now, because you're actually sorry. Like,
Yeah.
it's very humbling. So yeah,
Yeah. It's
that's a good
amazing.
quality.
Like and again, it all comes from that genuineness, right? Like I think we have to be sincere in everything that we do. And when we're not sincere, it doesn't really work that well. And even if it works for some time, the taste of it eventually dries up, right? It's just
Yeah.
because what we're really looking for is bhakti. What we're looking for is love. What we're looking for is that freedom,
Yeah.
and selfless service. But it's
Yeah.
difficult, of course, to unwind all the false ego and impressions that we've had, and all the knowledge
Yes.
that we've accumulated that we have to unlearn as well, right?
We're very mixed.
Oh my gosh, yeah, yeah. That's why we're so confused, right? Because we have so many different, even ways of philosophies in our head, right? So it takes time. So, anyways, man, this
Yeah.
was awesome. I think we're just over an hour here. Maybe we should wrap up this week. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man. So thanks so much, Bobby, for tuning in. I think you're like our first viewer, our one and only viewer. We love it. But that's cool. This is like, I really feel this is a cool service and something that's, a bit different, talking about Krishna consciousness from the household perspective. Yeah, so give it a like, share it out, maybe tell some other devotees that might like these conversations, and let's all hang out together.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Should we end off with our theme music? See if I can
Yeah.
pull that up. I love how our conversations go from 50 Cent to like fruitive activity.
Well, we're mixed, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. It's very reflective, right? It's like we're like, yeah, man, 50 Cent, Tupac is awesome, and Krishna says. That's
That's my
great.
life, though, man. Like,
It is.
gotta,
I know. I'm like,
gotta
this is
have
what
to
it is,
accept
man.
it somehow. Just be real.
Just be
Just live
cool
this
with it.
life.
Yeah. Oh no, it's awesome, man. I love it, man. And I like because again, like I like seeing like things of. I'm just overall fascinated with different cultures and ways of living. Man, I met this guy this weekend. We went on a fishing boat. We got the opportunity to go on this fishing boat, and he took us out and made like took us a little tour. And he's been a fisherman since he's 12 years old. Like he's generational fisherman. He knows nothing but fishing, right? That's all he knows. And he runs a church. He lives on a small island, like secluded island. You have to take a 20-minute ferry just to get to this island. It's called Deer Island in Canada. And it's a fishing community. He fishes lobster and he fishes different things throughout the year. And that's all he knows, right? No education, formal, and everything. This was one of the happiest dudes I've met in a long time. This guy was just so happy, so like just he loves what he does and everything, and and then he runs a church. He takes most of his money and he runs a church community in the community and everything. And it was just awesome. And I'm just like fascinated with people's lives, like especially guys like him, like people that just like seem to live outside of the box or kind of
Yeah.
unique life. They're just being themselves in the world and they're free to do that. I
Yeah.
just think it's so fascinating.
Yeah. Often people living simpler lives are happier.
Oh yeah, this guy was so happy, man. He was just like smiling the whole time. He was just happy to, and he just did that for us, like just because we were friends with our buddy. He's like, "Oh, bring him. We'll take him out on a boat cruise, and we'll just, give him like he just did that. And I know like he didn't have to or anything like that. It's just something nice he wanted to do, and it was just such a cool experience. It was actually something I've always wanted to do was go out on a fishing boat and try that stuff out. So I was really appreciative of it. Man, I don't know where I put that song.
Oh wow.
Wow, 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 wow. I think you're just gonna have to wrap it first. Oh, podcast intro. Here it is. Here it is. All right. You guys ready to end this thing?
Yeah. We're on 107. This is going to take us into the 108. So this means this podcast is great. 108, 108. The podcast was great. We ran on a little late. No, we didn't wait.
Don't masturbate.
Yeah, and don't masturbate.
I had to throw that one in there.
Because it keeps you up late and you think that it's great.
And you'll put on all kinds of weight.
Yeah. And be in a horrible state.
Awesome. All right. Peace, y'all. Hari bo.
Yeah. Haribao.